going to talk a little bit about controlling the single leg X because it's a really good position to sweep from and to attack from because you're right underneath their base. But also, like, the downside of that is that you're right underneath their base, so they can start to put a lot of pressure on you and kind of melt the position down into something that is not single leg X anymore. So I'm going to show you what I like to do to keep the distance and keep yourself safe. All right, so let's jump into the position. Just go straight into single leg X. So the first thing I think you need to do when you're in this position is understand where the person's weight is. Okay. So right now, Connor's weight is equal in both of his legs. All right, he's standing straight up. All right, it's not a common position in single leg X. It's not very threatening. I could tilt him back if I needed to, right? But what they're commonly going to do is try to make this leg super heavy. So they're going to start driving this knee down. I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen your single leg X turn into this, where your heel is just kind of like tugging onto his hip right here, but it's not really doing anything, and it's really hard to stay in this position. So the way I like to play this position, rather than thinking about my heel being on his hip, I think about the bottom of my foot extending into his ribs, and my inside leg, rather than attaching myself to his leg, I'm going to put my shin on his far thigh, and I'm going to use both of these to extend him off of my leg. So watch how I work here. You're going to see me rolling onto my right hip and extending both of these here. So now talking about where his weight placement is now, notice his foot is barely on the ground. Most of his weight is on the other leg. So this is how I like to keep the weight off of this leg. I never jump into single leg X and attach myself to one leg like this. Okay? Even if I have the underhook or the overhook or the underhook or the pant grip, any of those three grips, I still use my legs in the same way. I'm still extending the person onto their other leg. And that's going to be the basis for a lot of the sweeps, is keeping this leg light so that you can stand, so that you can spin underneath, and making this leg really heavy. Okay? The second thing you need to understand is how to control the person and keep them off balance. So my inside leg works a lot to make him step forward here, and my foot on the hip here, my heel, works to drive him back. So I'm digging my heel onto his hip to drive him back, and I'm using my foot behind his back to drive him forward. So you kind of like make him move around like he's like one of those wacky inflatable tube men you see in front of like used car dealerships. Okay? So he should never just be static here. You should be extending away, bringing him forward, rocking him back, bringing him forward, reaching for the pants. He should always be having to think about his balance. You should never just jump into position like, boom, single leg X. And then he slowly starts to just melt it down. Okay? So tilting forward and back by using my big toe. It's the same thing we did in the first entry where we're making the person walk forward here. Same exact thing here. It's like a really short person is just pushing him with their finger right in the back. It doesn't have to be super strong. It's not going to feel super strong, but it doesn't need to be. If you push him with any kind of force that's sustained behind his back, eventually he's going to have to step in order to keep his balance. Okay? You can also use your shin like on his hip by lifting your hips with the heel on his hip here to knock him back a little bit as well. And this is going to go into the tilt sweep that I'm going to show you guys later on. Okay? So rule number 1 is know where their weight is. Make sure their weight is off of this leg. And rule number 2 is always disturb their balance. Make them walk forward, reach for the pants, make them lean back. Okay? Now, we're going to talk about the 2 most common ways to clear this position and how you can defend them. Okay? So the first most common way is the person clears the foot off the hip and they backstep. Go ahead. Boom. And you lose everything. Okay? The second most common way I would say is they push the knee inside and they try to go to mount like this. All right? Those are the 2 most common that you're going to see. All right? So if they take the foot off the hip, make sure this leg is sticky on his far leg. Because remember, this is what's going to backstep. So you want to use your inside hook, not between, but hooking like behind his other leg. And then as soon as he clears this, you're going to bring this inside, and your toes are going to kind of push in his belly here. So if he goes to backstep, you're just going to extend your foot way up in the air, and it's going to off balance him so that he falls farther away from you. Okay? Rather than dropping right down on top of you, you're kind of pushing him here so he falls really far away. All right? One more time. And a lot of times if I feel he wants to backstep, like if I feel he's peeling like this, I'll switch to my overhook grip just because it'll be easier for me to belly down on an ankle lock or come on top once I do rock him this way. So remember, I'm not using my foot on the far hip. Let's rotate a little bit. Like this. I'm going here on this side of his hip, and I'm pushing straight up in his belly. Okay? Let's get some space over here. This way. So if he goes to backstep, like he peels my foot off the hip, I go inside, boom. And look, I can just bring my knee straight across his body and start to push myself up. I can ankle lock or I can come on top, but this is gonna mess up his backstep. And then the second way they're gonna break down the position is trying to push your knee down to mount. Okay, this one's I feel like is much easier to manage. So all you have to do, usually they do this not as often from standing because them putting their feet on the ground leaves a ton of space. So even if you push my leg in between my body, here, you see how his leg is straight? It's very easy for me to just bring my knee back up to my chest. A lot of times they start to go off to the side, like this, and then they start to try to bring this knee close. So all you have to do to manage this is when their hand pushes the knee inside, your forearm goes here. Like you can use the bottom of your hand or your forearm, but you keep the space. You don't let them close this knee here, okay? And then when their hand goes back to break this grip off, your shin comes back inside. And then when his hand goes here to push, your hand goes here. So it's a constant game. And then he tries to break your grip off, you bring your knee back inside, okay? So if he grabs here, you're opening the space with your hand. If he goes to your hand, you're opening the space with your shin. And as long as you're aware of that, you can get really good at this and you don't ever really feel in danger. And even if they do manage to push your knee inside and they're trying to take mount, all you have to do is make sure his knee doesn't come close to your body and hip escape in this direction. So I'm just going here, like hip escaping out and bringing my knee back in, okay, towards this direction. All right? So that's a little bit of the control. Remember, realize where their weight is. Keep their weight off of the leg that you're controlling. Remember to tilt them forward and back, using your heel on the hip to drag them down. And also, remember the back step defenses and them trying to push the knee between your legs, okay?